now time for our business segment, and today we're talking about managing finances during this festive period. Now, we all know during the festive period, we go crazy, we embark on huge spending sprees, new clothes, food, gifts, I mean, all sorts of luxuries. And then comes January, and then our pockets are bleeding dry. So is it pragmatic for us to manage our finances during this season or this festive period? And with me in the studio today, there's a gentleman who's going to tell us all about managing our finances, and he is Reverend Obame Tete, who's an executive director at Data Bank. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You're looking very good. I like the suits and the tie, the shirt and the tie combination.
Thank you very much.
So tell us, how do we manage our finances during this festive period?
Okay, let me take a step back and say that I think basically one of the challenges that people have is having the strong consumption mentality. And unfortunately, around Christmas, it just picks up the more. I think fundamentally, if we are thinking about building our finances, we need to have what I call a mental shift from consumption to investment. That's fundamental.
Okay.
Now, around the Christmas season, like you introduced, there's a lot of expenditure. And what we typically find is that people yield to what I would term peer pressure because they see people releasing all kinds of things from attires to gadgets and stuff like that, parties.
But is it a bad thing? I mean, it's a special occasion, you know, we have to look good, we have to eat good food, we have to give gifts and all of that.
Absolutely. It's not bad if you plan for it.
Right.
And I think that is one of the points that we should be discussing, the fact that you need to plan for, you know, what you spend around this time. Because
so we should have a special budget for the festive period.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And actually, I would recommend that, for instance, right from the beginning of the year, it should be possible for people to start planning and saving towards what they want to spend during Christmas.
Right.
I mean, people plan their holidays in some of the developed economies, and they do that by putting money aside so that they can go on vacation. So for Christmas,
we should do same.
We should same because we have to give gifts. It's very good. We have to, you know, celebrate and thank God and appreciate the fact that we are at the end of the year and so on and so on. But you need to plan for it.
Right.
Now, if you haven't planned for it, you'll find that you give into the pressure, you spend, and then January, which typically is a dry month, even if you look at the weather,
pockets are bleeding dry.
It becomes very dry.
Okay.
Now, you know that, especially for parents, January you'll be paying school fees and so on and so forth. So, if you haven't planned your expenses well, and you yield into the spending euphoria around the Christmas season, you find that you have a sorry story
to tell in January.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I think the key thing is being clear, and I think one of the tools that we should do is budgeting. Now, let's say you didn't budget or prepare for Christmas. You should be able to sit down and determine a number of things. For instance, what gifts or who should you give gifts to, and budget.
Maybe narrow it down, cross some names of the list.
Cross the name of the list, and then determine what you would give, because sometimes while the value of the gifts is important, even the thought behind it is most important. So you need to rationalize your giving. Plan if you're going to have some celebration, some going out to dinner at any of the restaurants. You need to plan and budget for it, and make sure that at the end of the day, you will still have money that would keep you for the expenses that will fall to you in January. Right. If you don't do that, you just spend legitimate spending, if you like, but then it will leave you in a bad place in January, and that is a very prudent thing to do.
Right. So we've already established the fact that the expenditure during this period is huge, but you working
see an increase in the withdrawals, because some people may have follow the plan of, as it were, putting money aside. So it's in order for them to withdraw. But generally, we see a lot of withdrawals. But what I would just want to chip in is the fact that expenditure is fine. But, you know, one of the things I typically propose is that you must acknowledge the kind of bills you need to spend on. And one of the bills is paying your future. And paying your future is actually putting money aside in savings and investment. So I'm going to say to people that okay, you are planning what you spend in December. You've got to withdraw X amount. Now, whatever the amount is, take a certain portion that you are going to put aside for yourself for the future. So you're not only spending in the present, but you're, in the book I wrote, I call it pay the future, because the future is a bill that will fall due. So don't only think of the bills you need to pay immediately, but in managing your finances, make an allocation for the future. If you do that, you put some aside for savings and investment. Now, again, for a number of people around this time, they may get some bonuses here and there. I think it's a very good time not to just take the bonus and spend it on things that you've been dreaming about.
What is a bonus? Bonus is meant to be,
So, if exactly the point, because it's a bonus, you didn't anticipate it. So once it comes, it should give you the opportunity to put quite a bit aside for your future. Because the thing is, many of us expect a certain bright future, but that future will not come if you don't pay for that future.
So it's all about thinking ahead.
Absolutely. And having that investment mentality. Unfortunately, a lot of us need to move away from this consumption mentality which we have, and it's not doing us any good.
Okay, so we've got a video on the general spending habits of people during this period. Let's take a look at it.
Actually, I can't give a specific amount. It depends, because sometimes you just have to go for fun, understand? And sometimes you have to shop for your family, maybe your girlfriend, maybe some few friends around. And so far I've spent a little, about 300 cedis. So it will come from my December salary.
I specifically don't use my savings. Any amount of money that comes to me, I use it to shop for the necessary things.
I also source money from my own funds, from my working capital, or maybe from wherever I work, and then I get the money from there, and then I use to shop.
Me kwan say no met me spend be say 6 million. E be shop ya meto mpobua, meto atare, e be meto ntuma na mapam. Say me hu ya fine pa. Me sika be say 2 million, otumi so e be to me spend one tare be say 2 million, e be 1 million ye aduane bi.
When you use what tomo ekoye 5 million ke ha gbe ke biye ni eni hu onye ohe owo kotoku ke flight on ni ne gallon ke amu ke ni bi sometimes any spend tomo 2 million lo be mi
mekita kwala miensa it say edu bronya say a metimi to atare ma wo mo metimi ato atare tutu ama wo mo atare ba ko bia e bi 800 e bi 900 enti metimi to tu ma wo mo mekita be ma mi susu na ma pay coat bi so ama mo be 2.5 bi ama mo enti before be di Christmas be ewie no at least some man say kra metimi say be e bia old money 5 million Christmas de bia na wanya akukọ mienu bi no de aye last bi ama mo no ma no o afie kro betimi aspe bi 200 Ghana
pa de obi anu wo kire no so won ka say wo hwa anwo chi nti won to atare ana say won didi
yentimi bi esuku no waka kira kola ne say emidi osika no na me de atodwane ma ma we di nti won ko school ani obe ko school by homies nti school fees is edi two separate ma omo.
As Christmas is a time of giving, spending is a necessary evil. But if you are tired of starting the new year dry because you overspent, then join us as we share with you how you can manage your Christmas expenditure.
Okay, Reverend, from that video we've just seen there, you've talked about managing our finances well and thinking ahead and saving for the future. But a few of the ladies in there, they're just, very worried. They haven't made enough money during the year. And so how would you advise them? How are they going to be able to have a good Christmas and also be able to have money left over afterwards for the January or the new year?
Well, I think they probably are looking at the fact that people should be spending a lot in Christmas. So they are looking at it from their point of view. I think that they probably are used to making so much profit, within the season. But if people really are going to change their spending pattern, or maybe as the cliche goes, the system is tight or people don't have money around, so they're not going to be spending, then it means that they just need to find ways to manage their businesses, as in looking for people to patronize their wares or their products. In terms of they themselves, I believe they need to be very clear on their spending pattern. if you don't have the money, then you don't spend. Or
that means they won't have the usual Christmas that they normally have.
Well, but the question is, what is Christmas? Does it mean only you wearing? I heard some say that you need to buy
shoes and clothes.
Yes, if the money is not there to buy the new shoes, why don't you just use some nice polish to make the
old one look better?
Well, I'm just saying that you see, you have to spend within
your means.
Within your means. So if, let's say, the profit you're making from your business is not as it used to be, then with the principle of budgeting, tell yourself that, look, so this I have only X amount. So maybe rather than buying a new shirt, a new shoe, a new pair of trousers, maybe just buy a new shirt, a new shoe, and
then you can. I like that. I like the
So it's all about rationalizing your expenditure, because the key thing is that you must live or spend within your means. Actually, when I'm talking about managing finance, I even push people that spend below your means, because those who are wealthy, if you speak with them, you realize that they go through the discipline of spending below their means, because sometimes, if we face the truth, we spend on things that we don't really need and we don't get to use. So I think it's all about rationalizing your expenditure, and you can still have a good time with your family, with your kids. Let them appreciate that.
But really, that's the essence of Christmas, isn't it? It's
exactly.
that period of family and bonding.
Yes,
so just cook some rice, get some chicken.
Exactly. It's not just the
do away with the new clothes and all of that.
Yeah. Another time will come where you may have the resources to do all the other things, but don't try to spend out of the means because other people are doing it. I think that is one of the challenges around this time, peer pressure. And it's not only kids that go through peer pressure.
It affects all manner of people, doesn't it?
Because parents can't, they're looking at what they're doing, other people are doing for their kids. And
Charlie, their neighbor is cooking some nice jollof, they must also have some.
Yeah, and that doesn't really help.
Right. So are there situations where people come to the bank to borrow money for Christmas?
Well, I think if you borrow money just to spend on Christmas, it's a very, very bad move, because basically when you borrow money, you are creating a liability, and anytime you are approaching a bank to borrow money, you must be thinking about how I'm going to pay back. And if you're just borrowing the money to spend on buying things, that's a very wrong move, because basically you must borrow money to generate a certain cash flow that will enable you to pay back. So if you're just borrowing to spend, you're just digging a hole for yourself.
But does it happen?
I believe that some people may do it, but you see, when you approach a bank,
you can't go and say I'm borrowing money for Christmas.
So you may borrow for something, you may pad it a bit, and if you qualify, then some people may. I don't have the statistics to say that people actually do, but I think that if anybody considers borrowing just to spend on Christmas, that is a very, very wrong decision, and it will come back to haunt you if you go that way, because borrowing must always be used to generate some cash flow to repay the debt, because it's not your money, and the bank giving you the money is using other people's money to give you the loan, and so you have to pay back with interest. So I'll not recommend that at all. Don't go there. Just live within your means and find a way of just enjoying Christmas with family and friends.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the average salary bracket. How much of our salary should we put towards, or should we spend during Christmas?
Okay, now I'd say it depends. But typically, people have, this matrix. They say about 70% of your income must be spent on your expenses, 10%, on savings and investment, 10% if you're a Christian on your tithe, and then 10% for, if you like, doing good or being generous to people, and so on and so forth. I typically say that it depends on your station in life and then the needs that you have. So if traditionally, or let's say on an average basis, you spend about 70% of your income on your expenses, your recurrent expenses, I would say that make sure you still live within that during the Christmas period. If, on the other hand, let's say you were expecting a bonus which has come and you're targeting the bonus for Christmas, then again, try and
so
have
this bonus, yeah, people won't agree with you because generally you see that it's like jam money, it's free money. So that's the money that people like to,
But it's advisable not to blow everything, if I can use that balance. But budget it. For everything, I think budgeting is key.
Right.
And budgeting basically means identifying what you need to spend your money on, and then identify your inflows and making sure that your budget balances. In fact, it's prudent to have excess inflows over the outflow. So just work with a budget. I think that is a key thing. So what do you have to spend, or what portion of your income do you have to spend during Christmas? I'll say work with a budget. Identify the list of things you need to do, and then once you compute the cost, make sure that it doesn't go way outside the percentage of your income you typically spend on your expenses. Because if you do that, then you'll be squeezing yourself, or you may be robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I think the budgeting issue is key. And one of the things when it comes to budgeting, I recommend is that look at your budget and track and trim it. In other words, look at the items that you've listed, and then try and cancel out the ones
as you go along. You find those that are less important or not very much priority.
So that at the end of the day you don't overspend during this period, because the tendency to overspend is there. It's very strong. The entire atmosphere is just.
There'll be loads of parties. You have to have different outfits to all these parties and all of that.
Yeah. So I think budgeting is a key thing which I recommend. That will help you control your expenses within this time. But it depends on where your income level is, and your disposable income, your other liabilities, and so on and so forth.
Right. Okay. So at this point, we will open the phone lines, and you can call in and share your experiences with regards to your expenses or expenditure during the festive period. Okay. So the phone numbers will be on the screen shortly, or they are on the screens right now, so you can phone in. So now I wanted to talk to you about there's been a general increase in tariffs, utility tariffs and all of that this year. How much do you think that will affect people's expenses or expenditure this year?
Okay. Before I comment on that, let me say that I think over the past couple of years at Databank where I work, we have noticed that during Christmas, we also do get a number of people coming in to invest.
I was just about to ask you that during Christmas, do you see people coming to save a lot, or coming to do a lot of deposits?
Surprisingly, for some years now, we see people coming. So that for me is very encouraging, and it tells me that people are thinking that, well, it's not all about
spending.
Or maybe the bonus they try and direct part to investment. So I recommend that. And let me quickly add that even when it comes to spending or giving gifts, you can decide to buy an investment voucher, which is to say there are a number of investment products around, so you can go to any of these
and give that as a gift.
Exactly.
I would really appreciate one of those
because it is something that would go beyond the season, and I believe the person will appreciate it. So
I would definitely appreciate one of those.
So people can consider those types of expenditure rather than. Of course, I'm not saying that other gifts are not good, but I'm just saying that people can even think along those lines and buy an investment gift certificate and let people also begin a certain habit of savings and investment. So I think that is something that I recommend. In terms of the question you asked about utility tariff increase and all
because
that.
General conditions will affect your savings and your budget.
Because once those increases hit.
Okay, please hold that thought while we go to our phone lines now.
Okay.
Hello, good morning, Jonathan.
Hello, good morning.
Please go ahead with your question.
Okay, first of all, I'll say
Afishapa, I think committee.
My comment on the expenditure, as Reverend is saying, it's true that people may certify their way to borrow money for expenditure.
Jonathan, hello? We can barely hear you. Can you please speak up?
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that, as Reverend is saying, it's true that people may fortify their ways to go to banks or microfinance institutions to borrow for money for the festive season. But as it's saying, when you borrow it means that you must do something that will generate an income. So it's a good advice to people that they shouldn't do that. Friends, they may think of spending on friends, and that may not bring any income to them. So this is a time that we should cut down our expenditure, because right after Christmas, your children may go to school. Some people may sound wanting, looking for money to buy do services for their children, which may become a problem. So it's a good advice to the public that we should cut down our expenditure, no matter what, pressure from friends and family. So this is my contribution.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Jonathan. But before you go, I'd like to ask you, how do you manage your finances during the festive period?
Managing my finances during the festive period. Wow, well, it's a great question. Like, many people have a different way of how they manage it. But to me, there are a lot of things that you think that you need, but you may not need them. You may not need them, like buying a certain drink, going out with friends, here and there. You can cut your expenditure down.
Jonathan, what about you? Do you go on a spending spree?
Hello?
I'm talking about you.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, I'm asking if you go on a spending spree.
Oh, actually, I don't do that, because each time I take a step, I really think about what am I going to spend on. I don't do impulse buying. Like,
that's very good to know. That's very good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Jonathan. Thank you. So I think he's basically agreeing with you, by not borrowing money to spend during the Christmas period and all of that.
Thing to do.
Right.
Yeah. But I was making the point that clearly once there are general increases in prices within the system, because once utility tariffs go up, you find that different manufacturers or service providers, depending on how it impacts their cost structure, will attempt to pass it on. So typically the net effect of some of these increases will mean that once disposable income, if that also doesn't grow in the same proportion or more than the increase in prices within the system, your disposable income will shrink or be reduced, and then that can impact a number of other things that you do, how much you can save, how much you can invest, how much you spend, and all that. I think what some organizations try to do is to do some adjustments as and when some of these changes occur within the broad economy. That may not be the experience for the average man in the street, but clearly once that happens, one needs to take a step back and then critically look at your expenditure pattern, because at the end of the day you must have a certain goal in mind, a certain quality of life that you need to achieve.
Okay, please, can we just go to our phone lines one more time and speak to our final caller? Good morning, Kojo. Oh, I think we lost him there, unfortunately, so we can wrap up.
Good. So I was saying that once there's been a change in the pricing, and you need to go back to your budget, and budgeting is something that we should be doing on a continuing basis. It doesn't have to be a static document. So you go back to your budget, and then you try and do the necessary changes. If your income side hasn't gone up, but the expense side has gone up because of some of these changes in the broad economy, then you need to do some manipulations here and there, just to make sure that you stay within budget, because you don't want to run a budget deficit. A country may run a budget deficit, but
not the individual.
Right. So it's all about learning to subject yourself to budgeting all the time. It's a way by which you can control how much you spend, because you can't control what PURC would determine in terms of prices and so on and so forth. The people you buy products from or the service you can't control, but you can control how much you spend, and in a certain extent you can also work hard on increasing your inflow. So I would recommend that people should warm up to using budgeting as an important tool in managing their finances. So when things change, you go back to your budget, do the necessary alteration, cut some things out, so that you still remain well within your finances
in the coming year. Okay, so there you have it. In this festive period, think ahead, have a budget, and be pragmatic in your spending.